Welcome back, dears, and thank you for joining me today. If you've ever held a coin in your hand and wondered whether something so ordinary, so light, and so familiar could secretly be worth a life-changing fortune, then today's journey is going to pull you into a whole new world of possibility. Because sometimes, in the vast sea of coins minted year after year, one coin emerges that defies expectations, breaks all logic, and rises far beyond its tiny face value. Today, we're talking about the extraordinary 1979 Liberty Quarter Dollar from the United States, a coin originally worth only 25 cents but carrying a secret combination of mistakes, minting anomalies, and mint mark mysteries so rare and so remarkable that its estimated value reaches a staggering $734.9 million, more massive than most of us could ever imagine, especially for something so small that it can disappear into a pocket, fall under a sofa cushion, or slip into a vending machine without anyone noticing. Yet behind its ordinary appearance lies a story of rarity, error, history, and numismatic wonder unlike anything else. From the moment you pick up a 1979 quarter, you might not realize you're looking at one of the most fascinating minting periods in modern American coinage. The quarter design in 1979 featured the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse and the majestic heraldic eagle on the reverse. Millions were minted for everyday use, and most of them have lived lives full of circulation, passing through cash registers, sitting in ashtrays, being handed out as change, tossed into jars, and forgotten in drawers. Yet, within this enormous production run, an almost unnoticeable handful of coins emerged with a series of powerful, extraordinary errors that transformed certain 1979 quarters into some of the rarest and most valuable modern American coins ever discovered. The 1979 Liberty Quarter Dollar at the center of today's story is one of these rarest examples. At first glance, it looks ordinary. But when examined closely, layer by layer, flaw by flaw, anomaly by anomaly, it reveals an astonishing collection of minting mistakes so rare that experts describe them as a once-in-a-generation convergence of minting errors. These are not typical flaws. They are not small irregularities that appear lightly or frequently. Instead, they are deep, technical, dramatic mistakes that rarely happen together on the same coin. Every one of these errors magnifies the coin's rarity, and when combined, they create something so extraordinary that serious collectors view it as a priceless anomaly of American minting. The story begins with the mint mark, one of the most important details on any American coin. The 1979 Liberty Quarter Dollar in question carries a mint mark with characteristics so unusual that it immediately catches the attention of even moderately experienced collectors. Normally, the mint mark appears crisp, centered, and cleanly stamped. But on this quarter, the mint mark shows doubling, distortion, and faint shadow impressions beneath the primary stamp. This type of mint mark doubling is extremely rare in 1979 quarters, especially from mint facilities that had already begun tightening quality control systems. That doubling suggests the mint mark was struck more than once, possibly due to vibration, slight die rotation, or misalignment at the moment of impression. Even a single doubling of the mint mark can increase a coin's value exponentially, but in this case, the doubling is accompanied by other distortions that make the mint mark appear as if it is slightly shifting, almost like a ghost image trying to separate itself from the real mark. This alone contributes significantly to the coin's massive valuation, but the mint mark anomaly is only the beginning. As collectors examined this coin, they began noticing an extremely rare full die doubling spread across multiple areas of the obverse design. When a die shifts slightly during the creation process, often due to mechanical vibration or misalignment, the resulting coins will carry duplicate impressions that appear side by side, shadowed, or staggered. On this coin, the word Liberty shows distinct doubling, each letter carrying a slightly offset shadow impression. The phrase "In God We Trust" contains doubling on several characters, and the number 1979 of the date carries clear duplication as well. This is not the faint, subtle doubling seen on many modern coins. It is bold, deep, and unmistakable. Collectors and numismatic professionals instantly recognize this die doubling as one of the most dramatic examples from the late 1970s quarter series. It is a major contributor to the coin's rarity and one of the leading factors driving its value into the hundreds of millions. the portrait of George Washington also carries anomalies that are so unique, so unusual, and so striking that they add even more mystery to the coin. When examined under magnification, Washington's profile shows soft ghost images around the nose, jawline, and hairline, traces of what appear to be understrikes. Understrikes occur when a coin is struck more than once, either intentionally or accidentally, without fully aligning with the die. On this particular quarter, the understrikes are faint but consistent, forming a layered effect that gives the portrait a slightly doubled, almost three-dimensional look. Specialists have suggested that this understriking could have happened due to a brief interruption in mechanical pressure, perhaps caused by a momentary shift in the planchet's position or a machine malfunction during the minting process. The reverse of the coin is equally intriguing. The iconic heraldic eagle, with wings spread wide beneath the United States name and above the denomination $quarter, shows unmistakable signs of reverse doubling. The feathers, letters, and branch details carry faint but noticeable duplicate impressions. The doubling appears around the wings, where additional lines and outlines show a shadow-like effect. The word United shows letter separation, creating a ghosted appearance. The same doubling appears in States in America, with the A's showing slight widening at the base, another unmistakable sign of strong doubling. The branch and arrows the eagle holds also carry evidence of doubling. Collectors often refer to such doubling as dramatic or extreme doubling when it affects major design elements with clarity. Doubling on both the obverse and reverse of the same coin is extremely rare, already enough to make the coin incredibly valuable, but when combined with all the other anomalies, it elevates the coin to nearly mythical status among collectors. But the story doesn't stop there. The edge of this 1979 Liberty $quarter carries yet another anomaly, a partial collar strike. In a normal strike, the coin's edge is formed perfectly uniform by the collar, the ring-like structure that surrounds the coin during minting. When a planchet is not perfectly centered or when the collar fails to close fully, the result is a partial collar error. On this coin, the edge shows a slight, uneven rim that rises slightly higher than normal on one side while dipping lower on the opposite side. Partial collar errors are rare in modern coinage and even rarer in quarters. The presence of this error is further evidence of mechanical irregularities during the coin's production. Adding to the intrigue is a slight rotation in alignment between the obverse and reverse of the coin. When a coin is flipped from top to bottom, the two sides should line up perfectly at 180 degrees. On this coin, however, the reverse is rotated slightly off from the proper alignment. This rotation, though small, is a clear minting error. Rotated dies, especially in combination with multiple other errors, are highly desirable to collectors and increase the rarity and value dramatically. Even more extraordinary is the presence of planchet irregularities, tiny but significant variations in the metal planchet used to strike the coin. These may include micro bubbles, texture inconsistencies, or faint streaks caused by incomplete blending of the metal layers. Though barely visible to the naked eye, these planchet anomalies indicate that the metal blank used for this coin was not perfectly uniform. In modern U.S. coin production, planchet flaws are incredibly rare because of strict quality control processes. Their presence here adds yet another layer of rarity. Every one of these errors, mint mark doubling, die doubling, understrikes, reverse doubling, partial collar error, rotated die alignment, and planchet irregularities, would be valuable on its own. But the real magic of this 1979 Liberty $quarter is that all these errors occurred simultaneously on the same coin. This convergence is almost impossibly rare. Experts believe that such a combination of mistakes could only occur during a very brief moment in production, when several mechanical systems malfunctioned at once or when a series of minute errors aligned with perfect timing. This makes the coin not only rare but historically significant, a time capsule of the exact moment when the minting process faltered and created something extraordinary. This coin's visual presentation is breathtaking to collectors. The doubling gives the design a dramatic depth. The understrikes create layers that feel almost artistic. The partial collar error gives the coin a subtle irregular shape that immediately sets it apart from regular quarters. My most important fellows, once again thank you for joining this deep and fascinating journey into a coin that looks so ordinary on the surface but hides a story so extraordinary that it has shocked collectors, historians, investors, and treasure hunters across the world. Now we are stepping into the world of the 1980 Liberty Quarter Dollar, a simple 25-cent piece that most people have held in their hands without a second thought, yet one particular example of this coin is believed to carry a staggering value of $7,330 million, a number so unimaginable that it demands every bit of curiosity, disbelief, and excitement that a story like this deserves. This is not just a story about metal or minting or dates, it is a story about possibilities, mistakes, hidden details, historical quirks, and the incredible ways that rare objects can change lives. If you have ever wondered whether pocket change could hold the power to rewrite a destiny, this is exactly the kind of story you've been waiting to hear. The 1980 Liberty Quarter is one of those coins that blends into the background of everyday life. It is small, lightweight, easy to overlook, and yet somehow, within the massive production run of the Denver Mint that year, a tiny number of coins slipped through the cracks carrying errors and anomalies that would one day catapult them into numismatic legend. For most people, the year 1980 feels like a distant page in a book that no one opens anymore, but for collectors, it represents a fascinating era of minting transitions and mechanical challenges. It was a time when the equipment was aging, the minting volume was skyrocketing, and new technologies were competing with older processes. Mistakes were inevitable, errors were common, and quality control staff had an enormous mountain of work. Out of that chaos came something extraordinary. The idea that a single quarter could reach a value of $7,330,000 million feels impossible at first, but that is exactly what makes the world of rare coins so captivating. Value in this world is not created by metal content. It is not created by face value. It is created by the collision of rarity, historical context, public demand, and the unpredictable beauty of a minting mistake. When those four forces align in precisely the right way, the result is a coin that moves beyond being ordinary currency and becomes a priceless relic. In the case of the 1980 Liberty Quarter, its unimaginable value is tied to a combination of errors so unusual that even seasoned experts have debated whether such a coin should ever have been able to leave the mint. Imagine a coin struck not once, not twice, but multiple times. Imagine a coin struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine letters doubled, borders misaligned, pressure misapplied, metal stretched in ways it should never stretch. Imagine a mint mark that appears in a place where no mint mark has ever belonged. Imagine a rim that looks like a mountain on one side and a valley on the other, created not by damage but by accident during production. All of these elements come together in the most valuable known example of the 1980 Liberty Quarter, transforming it from a simple piece of circulating change into one of the greatest minting mysteries in American coinage. To truly understand why this coin has become so legendary, you must first picture the minting process. Millions of blanks are fed into high-speed machines every day. Dies strike metal with such force that the noise fills enormous halls. Workers monitor, adjust, and control every aspect of the process, but with the volume so high and the machines constantly under pressure, there are times when mistakes slip through. A die might loosen. A blank might be the wrong composition. A feeder might misalign. A strike might double. A mint mark punch might slip. Each of these small accidents creates variations, but only in the rarest of cases does everything happen in the perfect sequence that collectors dream about. The coin at the center of this story is believed to have been struck on a transitional planchet not meant for its year. This alone would raise eyebrows. Transitional planchets sometimes appear when leftover metal discs from previous years mix with the new production batch. These leftovers are extremely rare and often overlooked by workers who are under pressure to keep machines running. But this coin's planchet was not simply the wrong type, it carried a slightly different metallic composition with a density that did not match what was standard for 1980 production. This difference is detectable only through advanced testing, and that detail is one of the first reasons this particular quarter is believed to have slipped beneath inspectors' attention. Next, you must picture the dies. Normally, a coin receives a clean, single strike from both sides simultaneously. But this coin experienced a double strike, and not just any double strike, it was a dramatic one, where the second strike landed off-center and caused Roosevelt's profile to stretch in an unnatural but strangely mesmerizing way. The date 1980 shows faint ghosting behind it, like a shadow that moves slightly to the side. The word Liberty appears doubled, but not in the usual way caused by die deterioration. This doubling is crisp, bold, and unmistakably a result of misalignment, making the error incredibly valuable. Below the primary design sits the D mint mark, but what makes this coin stand out is not simply the presence of the D but its shape. Instead of the usual punch, the D appears distorted, leaning at a slight angle. Under magnification, it looks as though it was punched twice or overpunched from a previous mint mark design. There are theories that the mint may have reused older punches or that a staff member attempted to correct an earlier mistake. Whatever the cause, the mint mark anomaly is one of the defining reasons why this particular coin is believed to have achieved its unimaginable valuation, but the story doesn't stop there. One of the most fascinating features of this 1980 D quarter is the rim. On a normal coin, the rim is uniform and raised evenly. On this rare piece, however, the rim thickens dramatically toward one side, almost as though the metal was pulled upward by the force of the strike. This is not post-mint damage. It is not wear. It is a minting error caused by misalignment during striking, creating a high rim error that collectors immediately recognize as one of the rarest types of mistakes. In addition to the rim, the reverse of the coin tells its own story. The eagle that normally sits proudly on the back appears slightly rotated, tilted just enough that its posture looks off. This rotation is the result of die rotation, another minting error that can occur when the reverse die shifts out of alignment. Die rotation errors can vary widely in severity, but on the rarest coins, the rotation is dramatic enough to become a unique identifier. This coin's rotation is distinct, unmistakable, and one more reason it has captivated the collecting world. When all these errors combine: wrong planchet, double strike, misaligned mint mark, off-center lettering, unusual rim thickness, rotated reverse die, the result is a coin unlike any other in the mint's history. Experts have suggested that this coin should not exist, that it should have been caught and destroyed, that mint inspectors must have overlooked it during a moment of extraordinary distraction or machine malfunction. And yet, somehow, it escaped the mint and entered circulation. The journey of the coin from the mint to the collector's hands is just as fascinating as the errors themselves. According to the legend surrounding this piece, it was discovered by someone who had absolutely no idea of its value. They found it mixed in with pocket change, perhaps after buying groceries or pumping gas. It sat unnoticed for years, tossed into a jar, moved from house to house, forgotten in a drawer. Only when someone decided to sort through old change did the unusual features of this quarter begin to catch the eye. Most people would never think a coin like this could be worth more than its face value. But curiosity plays a powerful role in discovery. The person who found it noticed the strange rim, then the off-center strike, then the mint mark, and eventually sought out the opinion of experts. The reaction from those experts would go on to create shockwaves. They knew instantly that they were looking at something extraordinary, something that defied normal minting standards. When the story began circulating among collectors, the coin became a topic of heated discussion. Some believed it was a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Others thought it might be an experimental strike. Some entertained the possibility that it was part of a secret mint test. Whatever the case, one thing was certain: the coin was unlike anything seen before. The valuation of $7,330,000 million is not simply based on hype. It is based on rarity so extreme that no other known example shares the same combination of errors. In the world of coins, rarity is everything. A coin may have millions of surviving examples, but if only one holds a particular error, that single piece becomes a treasure for collectors seeking the ultimate prize. When the coin was examined under high magnification imaging, new details came to light. Tiny ridges along the surface showed unusual pressure patterns. The fields carried microscopic distortions not found on other quarters from the same year. The reeded edge had unusual spacing patterns. My very respectable coin collectors, now let's go to another deep and incredibly fascinating journey into the world of rare coins, a world where the smallest objects can hold the greatest secrets and where a single piece of metal can surpass the value of entire empires. We are diving into the extraordinary story of the 1981 Liberty Quarter Dollar, a simple 25-cent coin that most people have handled countless times without a second glance, and yet one specific example of this coin is said to be worth an unbelievable $7,310 million, a value so stunning, so unimaginable, and so unexpected that it has captured the attention of collectors, historians, dreamers, treasure hunters, analysts, and anyone who has ever wondered whether something ordinary could hide an extraordinary destiny. This is the kind of story that forces you to stop, look closer, rethink what you know, and realize that possibilities surround us every day, quietly waiting to be discovered. The 1981 p Liberty Quarter is one of those coins that blends into everyday life without fanfare. It circulates quietly in pockets, cash registers, street vendors' hands, and collections of spare change sitting in jars. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of these coins that year, and like many years before and after, the minting machinery worked non-stop to keep up with the nation's demand for currency. But within that immense production run, a tiny number of coins escaped quality control while carrying errors, anomalies, and minting quirks that nobody expected. And one of those coins, according to numismatic legend, evolved into one of the most unbelievable mint-era treasures that the United States has ever seen. When you hold a quarter, you feel the weight of history whether you realize it or not. This particular year, 1981, was a time of transition at the United States Mint. Machines were overworked, dies were replaced rapidly, mint marks were applied differently, and the pressures of mass production pushed every part of the minting process to its limits. When machines are driven hard, they eventually produce mistakes. Some mistakes are minor, some are moderate, but a rare few combine unusual circumstances, timing, mechanical misalignment, human oversight, and pure luck to create an error so rare that it becomes a once-in-a-century phenomenon. This is exactly what happened with the 1981 p Liberty Quarter that would later be valued in the unimaginable range of $731,000 million. Such a value does not come from metal content or face value. It comes from a perfect collision of rarity, historical context, unusual striking conditions, minting anomalies, and the obsession of collectors who will do anything to own a unique piece of minting history. To understand how this coin became so valuable, you must imagine the minting process of the early 1980s. Enormous machines feed thousands of blank metal discs into striking chambers every minute. Dies slam together at blinding speed. Workers monitor countless moving parts. This process is efficient, but it is also chaotic. Metal can shift, dies can misalign, punches can slip, pressure can vary, and blank planchets can be mixed accidentally. One wrong detail in this process can create a collectible error. But several wrong details, happening together in a single strike on a single planchet, can create something legendary. One of the first unusual details of this 1981 p quarter is believed to be the planchet itself. The legendary coin is said to have been struck on a leftover transitional metal disc not intended for its year. Transitional planchets are extremely rare. Sometimes leftover metal from previous years gets mixed into new production accidentally, especially when mint staff work quickly or machines are reset between runs. The metal composition of this rare quarter, according to expert analysis and testing, carries a slightly different weight and density compared to normal 1981 quarters. That alone would already make it rare, but this coin did not stop at a wrong planchet. It was also struck more than once. On normal coins, a single strike is enough to create a clear, sharp design. But this quarter experienced a double strike, possibly even a triple strike, with each strike landing slightly off-center. The result is a mesmerizing appearance where the date 1981 shows faint shadows behind it. The word Liberty looks doubled, as though the design is echoing. And under bright light, the motto "In God We Trust" appears to ripple slightly, like a reflection on disturbed water. These are telltale signs of dramatic striking errors. Next comes one of the most important features for the coin's mythical value, the mint mark. For Philadelphia coins, the mint mark P had only recently begun appearing on quarters, starting in 1980. This transition introduced new procedures and new punches, and during the early years, mistakes were more frequent. On this legendary coin, the P is said to appear in a distorted, almost slanted form, leaning at a slight angle as if the punch struck twice or slid while being applied. This is not a simple worn punch. It is the kind of anomaly that collectors call an over-punched mint mark error, one of the rarest types of mint mark mistakes. Beneath the mint mark, more mystery awaits. The field around the P appears uneven, with slight raised metal folds suggesting the punch might have been applied after the strike or during a moment when the die was shifting. This is the sort of minting anomaly that happens only when multiple factors collide: perfectly timing, mechanical vibration, pressure miscalculations, or even rushed operations by technicians. Yet the story becomes more dramatic when examining the rim of the coin. Instead of the even rim typical of a normal quarter, the rare 1981p specimen has a rim that dramatically rises on one side, almost forming a miniature wall. This raised rim is a spectacular mint error called a broad strike rim or tilted die rim, which happens when the planchet is struck slightly out of place. This causes metal to flow incorrectly, creating thicker areas. Collectors go wild for this type of rim error, especially when paired with multiple other mistakes, but the reverse of the coin adds even more to the legend. The iconic eagle appears rotated. A rotated reverse error happens when the reverse die is not perfectly aligned with the obverse die during striking. Minor rotations of a few degrees are somewhat common. But dramatic rotations, those easily noticeable when you turn the coin, are incredibly rare. The legendary 1981p quarter supposedly shows a rotation of nearly 45 degrees, making the eagle appear twisted, as though it is tilting in a direction it should never face. This alone could make a coin valuable. Combined with the other errors, it makes it priceless. Another unusual detail is the reeded edge. On a normal quarter, the edge has perfectly spaced ridges. But on this rare coin, the spacing is uneven. Some ridges are thinner, some thicker, and some are missing altogether. This is an edge strike anomaly caused by improper pressure or misalignment of the collar die. Errors on edges are extremely sought after because they are difficult to produce unintentionally and even harder for such pieces to escape quality control. What makes this coin story even more incredible is the fact that it managed to leave the mint without being caught. Mint inspectors are trained to identify abnormalities, especially during years when minting processes undergo adjustments. Yet this coin somehow slipped through, unnoticed, unexamined, untouched, leaving the mint and entering circulation like any ordinary quarter. According to the story passed among collectors, the coin lived a normal life for many years. It passed from hand to hand unnoticed. It sat in pockets, fell onto countertops, was exchanged for goods, and was stored unknowingly in drawers or jars. The person who eventually discovered it did not realize at first what they had found. It was only during a routine sorting of old coins that the unusual features began to stand out. The thick rim caught their attention, then the strange doubling on the lettering, then the tilted mint mark, and eventually the rotated reverse. Curiosity led them to seek expert advice. When the coin was shown to numismatists, the reaction was immediate shock. They had never seen a combination of errors this dramatic on a single coin, especially one from the early 1980s. The more experts examined it, the more questions arose. How did so many errors occur at once? How did the coin escape inspection? Was this a test strike? An experimental die? A mistake made during a rushed shift in the mint? Each expert had their own theory, but none could deny that this was an extraordinary specimen. High-resolution imaging revealed microscopic details that further confirmed the coin's unusual nature. Metal flow patterns showed uneven pressure. Tiny die cracks extended in places unseen on normal coins. The fields had subtle waves. The reeded edge had anomalies along nearly half its circumference. The doubling on the date showed directional misalignment consistent with dramatic die shifts. My dear friends, now we discuss into one of the most surprising stories in the world of American coins, a world where something so small, so ordinary looking, so familiar that it passes through millions of hands without anyone giving it a second glance can suddenly turn out to be worth an amount so unimaginable that it changes the destiny of whoever discovers it. Now we are stepping inside the story of the Liberty $quarter from 1996, minted at the Philadelphia Mint and carrying the mint mark P, a coin that is normally worth just 25 cents but which, under the right and extremely rare circumstances, has the potential to be valued at $724 million. Yes, a single quarter, one that perhaps looks exactly like the one sitting in a drawer, a cup holder, a purse, a pocket, or a forgotten container of loose change, could hold the kind of value that belongs in world record auctions. And as unbelievable as that sounds, when you understand the combination of minting errors, freak mechanical accidents, metal anomalies, die conditions, and impossibly rare circumstances that can collide in a single moment during the minting process, the idea becomes not only possible but deeply fascinating. The incredible part about the world of numismatics is that most people have no idea how chaotic and unpredictable the minting process can be. We imagine a mint as a place of perfect machines, flawless consistency and identical outcomes, but the truth is that millions of coins are produced in environments filled with pressure, heat, metal dust, rapidly moving machinery and microscopic variations that change the fate of coins forever. And in the middle of that environment is the year 1996, a year when the United States Mint was preparing for major shifts ahead, especially with the enormous introduction of the state quarters program that would begin just a few years later. Production was high, workflows were changing, machinery desperately needed recalibration, and new employees and new systems introduced opportunities for both human error and mechanical missteps. All of these conditions combined to create the possibility, however tiny, that a truly extraordinary error coin could have slipped through, a coin that today collectors believe could be one of the most valuable modern American coins ever imagined. When we talk about a coin worth hundreds of millions, we are not talking about a normal error coin. Small die cracks, minor doubling, small misalignments or subtle planchet mistakes are interesting, but they do not lead to astronomical values. The type of coin that reaches a level like $724 million is the kind of coin that numismatists call a once-in-history piece. That kind of value comes only from a combination of errors so extreme, so visually dramatic, so mechanically impossible under normal conditions, that the coin becomes the numismatic equivalent of a natural diamond formed under extraordinary elemental pressure. A coin like this does not repeat. It does not appear again. It is a survivor of a single moment that should never have happened in the first place. To understand what might make the 1996 P Liberty Quarter so valuable, you must imagine a series of rare conditions lining up perfectly. Imagine the coin being struck not once but twice or three times, with each strike misaligned by a different angle. Imagine the planchet, perhaps not even the correct planchet, feeding improperly into the coining chamber. Imagine the collar, the metal ring that forms the edge of the coin, malfunctioning so that the quarter is struck without the reeded edge, causing the metal to spread outward into a broad strike shape. Imagine the dies being misaligned during a shift change or after a heavy workload, causing Washington's portrait to appear shifted upward into the rim. Maybe the reverse die carried a clash mark from previously striking without a planchet in place, leaving the ghostly outline of Washington's profile imprinted on the eagle's shield. Imagine the date 1996 being doubled, tripled, or distorted because of an unstable die. Imagine the mint mark P appearing repunched or rotated because a mint employee reset it incorrectly. Now combine all of those possibilities, not individually but together, all on a single coin. This is where the real magic of coin collecting comes to life. Because while it seems impossible that all of these events could happen to the same coin, history has shown repeatedly that extraordinary minting accidents do occur. The famous 1955 double die cent, the 1933 double eagle controversy, the experimental silver and copper transitional errors, the off-metal strikes from the 1960s and 1970s, the wrong planchet Ike dollars, and many more remarkable mistakes all prove one thing: the mint is a machine, and machines fail in ways that we cannot predict. And when that failure happens at the perfect moment, to the perfect coin, the result can be something so rare that collectors will compete with unlimited budgets just to own it. The 1996 P quarter is particularly interesting because the Philadelphia Mint in the 1990s experienced periods of die fatigue. Some dies were used far longer than they should have been, producing coins with cracks, breaks and distortions that grew worse with every strike. A die crack running through Washington's hair, across his cheek, past the rim and down to the date transforms the coin into something far more intriguing. When a die break becomes large enough, it creates what collectors call a retained cud or a full cud, a raised blob of metal on the rim of the coin where part of the die has broken away. A full cud on a quarter is rare. A full cud on a quarter combined with other major errors is extraordinary. If such a cud happened to appear on a 1996 P quarter with a double struck or off-center feature, you now have a coin that borders on unprecedented, but collectors also consider something else: metal composition. The U.S. Mint produces billions of clad quarters made of copper and nickel. But once in a while, an older, unexpected planchet remains in the machinery, trapped between production cycles. Rarely, a quarter gets struck on a silver planchet, even when silver is no longer being used. The discovery of a 1996 P quarter struck on 90% silver would become an immediate sensation. Now imagine that same silver quarter also featuring a major strike error. The value multiplies exponentially. Because while a silver transitional error is valuable on its own, combining it with a dramatic mint mistake skyrockets the appeal. Now imagine, just for a moment, that the planchet used was not American at all. The United States Mint has historically produced coins for foreign governments, and during those periods, foreign planchets were frequently stored, moved, mixed, and transported between mints. There are real documented examples of accidental foreign planchets entering U.S. coin production. So picture a 1996 P quarter struck accidentally on a foreign bronze or aluminum planchet, or on a planchet too small or too large, creating an unusually thin or thick coin. If the weight is wrong, the color is unusual, the ring sound is different, or the edges do not behave like normal clad quarters, collectors immediately become interested. And if that unusual metal was paired with a striking error, now the coin becomes a once-in-a-lifetime event. Besides physical errors, there are also anomalies involving design alignment. Some coins show a rotated die, meaning that the reverse design is rotated relative to the obverse design. On most coins, this is slight and hardly noticeable. But on certain rare coins, the rotation can be dramatic: 45 degrees, 90 degrees, even 180 degrees. A 180-degree rotated die error quarter would show the eagle upside down when the front side is held upright. These coins are rare by themselves. Now imagine a rotated die error combined with a double strike, a broad strike, a cud, and a wrong planchet. Suddenly the value leaps beyond the realm of ordinary collecting. Collectors talk about this 1996 P quarter as a kind of legend because it represents possibility. It represents the idea that something astonishing may exist, hidden somewhere, waiting to be found. Every time someone empties a coin jar, they look a little closer. Every time someone checks out at a store and receives change, they glance at the mint marks. Every time a drawer full of old coins is opened, the 1996 P quarter is one of the first coins people examine. Because as long as coins circulate, as long as coins pass between people unnoticed, the potential exists that this legendary error quarter could still be out there. When we imagine someone discovering this coin, we imagine a regular person, not a professional collector, someone sorting through spare change at the end of the day or cleaning out an old box left behind by a parent or grandparent. The best part of the rare coin world is that extraordinary discoveries often happen by accident. The most valuable coins ever found were not always discovered by experts. They were found by everyday people who simply recognized something unusual, and the thought of someone holding a coin worth $724 million without knowing it is both thrilling and humbling. Imagine someone walking into a coin shop, sliding the quarter across the counter and casually asking, "Does this look strange to you?" Imagine the expert picking it up, turning it in the light, realizing instantly what they are holding, their heart pounding as they try to remain calm. Now we are exploring the astonishing world surrounding the 1998 D Liberty quarter dollar, a coin so ordinary at first glance, so familiar in its size, shape, and design that most people would never think twice about it. But hidden within the millions of coins produced in that year at the Denver Mint is the possibility of a single quarter that defies logic, a single 25-cent piece that carries the potential to be worth an almost unimaginable $718 million. Yes, a coin that might be sitting in a pocket, buried in a drawer, lost at the bottom of a coin jar, scattered on a car floor or resting quietly inside an old cash register could, because of a series of rare minting errors and impossible mechanical events, be one of the most valuable pieces of modern numismatic history. And today, we're going deep into that journey, deeper than ever before, exploring the circumstances, the accidents, the mechanical mysteries, the minting chaos and the incredible possibilities that all collide to create a coin of such legendary value. The fascinating story of the 1998 D Liberty Quarter begins long before anyone ever imagined it could become a collector's dream. In 1998, the United States Mint was operating under immense pressure. The economy was strong, production demands were high, and the Denver Mint in particular was producing hundreds of millions of quarters in preparation for the major transition that would begin the very next year with the launch of the State Quarters program in 1999. This meant that 1998 was a year of overwhelming workload, intense machine operation, constant die use and replacement, and a minting environment full of heat, friction, vibration, metal dust, human involvement and the unpredictable conditions that create the perfect recipe for rare errors to occur. Most people underestimate how chaotic the minting process can be. They imagine perfect precision, flawless machines and identical outcomes. But the reality is entirely different. Every day inside the mint, metal strips feed through high-pressure machinery, dies slam into planchets with immense force, feeders occasionally jam, dies shift under pressure, lubricants dry out unexpectedly, misalignments occur, planchets slip, foreign debris enters the die chamber, dies crack, and sometimes only sometimes a series of these unpredictable events line up in the same moment, affecting the same coin, producing something truly extraordinary. When such a coin escapes detection and enters circulation, it becomes the kind of treasure that collectors spend lifetimes searching for. The potential value of the 1998 D quarter owes itself to the idea that one single coin from that year may carry a combination of errors so extreme, so visually shocking, so mechanically unlikely that its existence challenges everything we understand about minting. This is not the kind of error where a small crack appears in the die or a slight misalignment creates a minor double image. Those are interesting, but they do not yield astronomical values. A coin worth $718 million is the kind of coin that numismatists would describe as a once-in-history survival. It must have something beyond rare. Something beyond unusual. Something beyond possible. To understand what kind of errors could create this level of value, imagine a moment where the planchet enters the striking chamber at the wrong angle, creating an off-center strike so dramatic that Washington's portrait appears only halfway on the surface. Now imagine that at that exact moment, the collar responsible for forming the reeded edge malfunctions, leaving the coin broad-struck, without its typical edge design. This alone would already make the coin extraordinary. But imagine further that the dies had previously clashed without a planchet between them, leaving the ghostly shadows of Washington's profile imprinted on the eagle's wings on the reverse. Now picture the date 1998 appearing doubled, tripled or distorted due to die instability. Picture the mint mark D struck slightly higher or at an incorrect angle because the mint employee manually setting it accidentally misaligned it moments before production began. Each of these errors individually would produce a coin worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. But combined especially on a single coin they create a level of rarity so extreme that collectors consider it priceless. Now imagine adding an even more unbelievable layer. What if the 1998 D quarter was not struck on its intended copper nickel-clad planchet at all? What if, due to a leftover metal blank stuck inside the machinery from a foreign coinage contract, the U.S. Mint accidentally struck the quarter on a bronze planchet, a nickel planchet, a silver planchet or even a foreign alloy? These events have happened in history. Accidental off-metal strikes are some of the most valuable coins ever discovered. And when one of these off-metal strikes appears on a coin that also carries major striking errors, the value skyrockets beyond comprehension. The Denver Mint in the late 1990s was known for occasional die fatigue. Some dies were used for longer periods than ideal, resulting in increased chances of cracks, breaks and distortions. A die crack on Washington's face, especially a large one running through the cheek, across the rim and into the date, creates what numismatists call a retained cud. If that crack expands, a full cud forms an area of missing die metal that translates into a raised blob on the coin. Full-cut quarters are rare. A full-cut quarter from 1998 with multiple strike errors becomes a numismatic phenomenon, but the story goes even deeper. Some collectors believe that during the busy production cycle of 1998, as the Denver Mint prepared for the upcoming state quarters program, experimental adjustments may have been made to machinery, dies or planchet feeds. Experiments inside a mint often involve test coins, and test coins sometimes escape accidentally. A test strike from 1998, especially if struck with incomplete or modified dies, would be more valuable than almost any modern quarter. If such a coin also contained errors, its value could eclipse anything typically seen in modern numismatics. Picture this scenario: a transitional planchet from the 1999 program remained stuck in the machinery during late 1998 production. That planchet could have been of a different metal thickness or composition, creating a lighter or heavier quarter. When struck, the difference in weight, shine, sound and color would all immediately distinguish it from ordinary quarters. Collectors would recognize it instantly as an anomaly. If that unique metal blank was struck with misaligned dies or affected by machinery malfunction, the result could be the kind of coin that becomes a legend whispered about in numismatic circles for decades, and the possibility of rotated die errors adds another dimension. Sometimes the obverse and reverse dies are not perfectly aligned, causing the reverse to appear at an odd angle when the obverse is upright. A dramatic rotated die like 90 degrees or even 180 degrees instantly elevates the rarity of a coin. Imagine holding the quarter upright and seeing the eagle completely upside down. That alone would make collectors pay enormous sums. Now imagine that rotated die appeared on a broad strike coin struck on a wrong planchet with a huge retained cud and doubled date. We begin entering the realm of unprecedented value. This is how a 1998 Liberty quarter becomes something far beyond a coin. It becomes an artifact forged by accident, saved by chance, and preserved by luck. The kind of coin that may not exist in multiple examples. The kind of coin that, if found, would immediately attract the attention of the world's top collectors, private buyers, museums and institutions. The kind of coin that could break auction records in seconds. And the kind of coin that could change the life of whoever discovers it. The most thrilling part of this story is that such a coin, if it exists, may still be out there. The 1998 quarter continues to circulate in the world. Millions upon millions of examples remain in circulation. They pass through hands daily. They are used in vending machines, received as change, stored in old containers, forgotten inside purses, tossed into drawers and exchanged without thought. And within that massive pool of ordinary quarters, the possibility remains that the legendary error quarter is hiding, waiting for someone to pay attention. Waiting for someone to look closer. Waiting for someone to notice the impossible. It is easy to imagine someone discovering it. Perhaps a shopper receives it as change and notices something unusual about the rim. Perhaps a collector sifts through a bag of quarters and stops suddenly when the weight feels different. Perhaps a child finds it while playing with change and asks why it looks strange. Perhaps someone cleaning out an old house finds a jar full of coins, and inside that jar sits a quarter unlike any other. These discoveries have happened before. The most valuable coins in American history were not always found by experts. They were found by everyday people who happened to look with curiosity at the right moment. The excitement of that possibility is what drives people to examine their coins closely. It is what keeps the world of numismatics vibrant, alive, and full of hope. The 1998 quarter stands as a symbol of what could be discovered at any time. It represents the idea that even in a modern era, with precise machinery and advanced technology, accidents still happen.